The Red Bull car RB20 had a really tough weekend in Miami, and it looks like they're showing some weak spots and other teams are finally catching up to them. McLaren is doing something amazing in the middle of the racing season, and Ferrari is putting big hopes in their Imola upgrades, calling them race-winning ones. Could the championship fight just be starting now? And, more importantly, is Red Bull now in danger of losing at least one of the championships? Everyone knows that the Miami race was not the best one for the Austrian team, mostly because of how they handled their tires and also some bad luck with the safety car. This not only helped Lando Norris change his tires at a good time, but the mistake of seeing the safety car go in front of Verstappen instead of the British driver really gave Norris an easy and comfortable way to keep his lead. But since Verstappen is Verstappen and Red Bull is as strong as they are in 2024, nobody expected that he would be behind for so long, and not only that, but he wasn't even able to catch up with Norris or stay close to him. The McLaren driver managed to finish the race more than 7 seconds ahead of everyone else. On the other hand, Perez had trouble keeping up with both Ferrari cars and found himself in a very strange battle with Hamilton. So all in all, it wasn't a very good weekend for the team that usually wins with both their cars finishing first and second. What's really important here is that the race speed was the real game changer for McLaren. Even when Verstappen was on the medium tires, he wasn't able to pull far away from Piastri, who kept a pretty good gap of 3 seconds behind the Dutch driver on the first run with medium tires. We should also remember that the Australian driver passed both Ferrari drivers and kept them behind him, and he only had half the upgrades that Norris had on his car. This means from Imola onwards, McLaren would be a much bigger threat for race wins, just like what we saw in Miami. Verstappen himself said he was worried that this might not be just a one-race show from the team based in Woking. When he was asked if this is the real race speed of the McLarens or if there was something else that could have played a bigger role, Verstappen said that he hopes this is not what we are going to see for the rest of the season. Even Helmut Marko warned us before the beginning of the weekend when the sprint qualifying ended that the McLarens might cause bigger problems for Red Bull than Ferrari. And that's exactly what happened. But what comes now? Like I mentioned earlier in the video, McLaren's big upgrades have seemed to work perfectly. What worries Red Bull the most is that there is only one car with the full upgrade package that came to Miami, in Imola. Both of the McLaren cars would have the same parts, including new side pod inlets, front wing, front suspension geometry, a changed front brake duct, and a completely new floor that works with the new side pod inlets and bodywork to make more downforce for Verstappen. This means that he would likely have to fight 2 McLaren drivers instead of 1. Even though it sounds weird to say this right now, he was nowhere close to fighting with Norris. Even if the safety car situation had turned the other way around, the Dutch driver himself said that he had no chance of catching up to the British driver. What's really important for Red Bull is the way that McLaren understood what they needed to do and brought these upgrades in the first place. Looking at all the changes they've made, it's clear that working overtime in Woking has brought a huge understanding of how the car moves and the air that flows underneath it. So it's not only the new version of the front wing that should get credit for all the success that McLaren had. It was also the geometry of the front suspension, because it helps direct the airflow towards the leading edge of the new floor. On top of that, the tire management has been absolutely amazing, with Norris setting the fastest lap on worn-out medium tires while Verstappen was struggling behind him on fresh hard tires before the safety car was called into the race. The main goal of upgrades was to fix the problem that the MCL38 had in the slow-speed corners, and we've seen that they've done this successfully. So when Norris and Stella were hinting that McLaren can fight for race wins this season, they could have warned us that the first win would have come as early as this weekend. This is also bad news for Red Bull from a different point of view. We saw how Perez struggles to keep up with his teammate and the rest of the drivers. Instead of fighting with both Ferrari drivers on medium tires while both of the Ferrari cars were on hard tires, he spent the time after the safety car defending against Hamilton's Mercedes car for Imola. This could be a much bigger problem for Red Bull, because if this is the case, then Perez would very well finish outside the top 5 based on pure race speed. This is exactly the reason why the Austrian team is keeping their options open when it comes to 2025, when the racing should be much more competitive. But McLaren is not the only team that Red Bull should be worried about. Ferrari is going to come up with the first and biggest upgrade package of the season in Imola, calling it the 2.0 version of the car. From what they saw in Miami from McLaren, Ferrari is now confident that the battle for the race win in Imola is definitely possible, although Leclerc said that the turn 15 incident between Verstappen and the cone caused damage to his floor. It's safe to assume it wasn't as big as expected, because normally the Dutch driver would have reported this on the radio when talking about the Imola upgrades and what they expect from them. Leclerc went on to say, "I'm sure that in Imola we will have a better race. By putting everything together, we know that many have brought updates to these races, but we finished ahead. We are at the point in developing the car where, if you bring something, it's not a matter of seconds but of tenths. It is not like a few years ago when everything brought 3 to 4 tenths without a doubt. We will be able to fight for victory in Imola. but I believe there is a gap that changes from track to track and from tire compound to tire compound, which makes more of a difference than an update. We must focus on our job, which is making the most of what we have. The update we will bring to Imola will certainly help, but it doesn't all depend on that. It also depends on the work we will do on the track. In qualifying, we've seen that Ferrari was closest to Red Bull, and for some reason McLaren couldn't understand how the soft tires worked. But luckily for them, they weren't needed much in Miami. Regardless, the situation that Red Bull has found themselves in is quite tricky, and it doesn't help them that Adrian Newey has of course just announced that he's leaving on the exact same weekend that Verstappen lost a race because of a real lack of speed and grip. He complained on the radio that he cannot turn the car and it being a disaster. What started as Red Bull being really strong might not continue in that way, because from the first 6 races in 2024, we've already seen 2 non-Red Bull drivers win a race, although in Australia it was because of Verstappen's brake failure. But according to Jenson Button, the Austrian team will have not 1 but 2 team competitors from Imola onwards, because McLaren are now definitely making steps to fight for race wins and therefore could change the championship completely in 2024. When talking about this matter, the 2009 world champion went on to say, "The connection between the simulator and the on-track data seems to be amazing at McLaren. The upgrades they had last year in Silverstone made a massive difference in terms of where the team will develop their car. It did what it said it would do, and that is the most difficult thing in Formula 1. I think in the next couple of races we are going to have an eye on them the whole time, and Red Bull is going to have their eyes on McLaren as well, not just Ferrari." So now it's very different in the way of thinking, because coming into a race, Red Bull now knows that they will be challenged from 2 teams, and the strategy would have to change a little. They've got to be ready all the time. With all this in mind, do you think that Red Bull are really going to be challenged by McLaren and Ferrari in Imola? And more importantly, do you think that there will be a situation where Verstappen will face a real threat for the championship? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.